Okay, this is a video on trials and tribulations of growing squash plants on your patio, on your deck, and what to look for, some things to look out for, how to make sure that you do successful harvests, and yeah, just a video on planting squash on your patio. So here I have a green zucchini plant and a yellow squash plant variety. So the green is on the left, and you can actually see a tiny little green squash right here. It's hard to reach, but yeah. And this is a squash flower. Anyways, some of the issues that you might have or experience when you're growing squash plants on your deck is certain kinds of pests and certain kinds of diseases and certain kinds of issues with mineral deficiencies that prevent you from having a successful harvest. So I'm going to go over some of those. First, starting with pests. Now, two types of pests that I've experienced issues with is squash bugs, which will basically lay like amber colored eggs on the underside of your squash plant leaves. And I don't have any issues right now, but maybe I'll show you some examples later in the season. But anyways, these squash bugs kind of look like beetles, and basically when you get those eggs starting to form on the bottom side of the squash leaves, you want to address it as soon as possible. You want to pick the eggs off and throw them away somewhere where they can't get back into your garden, or basically you can pull off that portion of the leaf that has the eggs laid on there. And it's really important because if they hatch, they're going to start to infest. So you want to address it as soon as you can. The second type of pest that can be a problem for patio gardeners with squash plants would be squash borers. Squash borers will essentially like bore themselves into the vine of the squash plant. So down below there you see what they'll do is they'll bore themselves into the side of the base vine, and they'll nest there, and that will become their home. But it will basically be detrimental to the life of your squash plant. So you want to watch for that. You want to watch for holes forming in your squash vine and check to see that there's no borers actually getting in there. Okay, so moving on to diseases. All right, so squash plants are susceptible to a disease called anthracnose. And once this anthracnose sort of gets into your patio garden, it will spread all over the place, and it will be increased. The spread will increase in rate due to rain or water, watering your plant. So the anthracnose is essentially like a fungus that attacks the plant leaves, and you can see an example of it right here. And what I would do typically is pick those leaves off and discard of them, and I would spray my entire plant with neem oil. So neem oil is an organic alternative to a fungicide that you can spray your squash plants with to rid them of anthracnose. But in addition to that, you'd use that on any other cucurbit, which includes cucumbers, melons, all those types of plants which are susceptible to anthracnose. Let's see here. So I wanted to show you that I have a cucumber plant. This is a bush cucumber variety growing right next to my zucchini plants, my squash plants. And I wanted to make the point that in my experience, cucumber plants are more susceptible to anthracnose. And so when you have the cucumber plants growing next to the squash plants like this, you have to be particularly aware of any sort of budding or beginning of anthracnose infestation, and you have to be on top of it. You want to take a preventative action, which is spraying with the neem oil before you see the anthracnose begin to infest. When you have problems with your your zucchini or squash plants not pollinating properly, or if you see malformation of your zucchinis, like for example brown at the ends of them, or like they look like they're beginning to rot on the ends. That can be due to a number of things. One of them can be improper pollination or incomplete pollination. So, for example, you go to, most people know about how you'd want to hand pollinate a zucchini plant, where you'd take off the male flower, expose the stem, which what's that called? Expose the pollen on the stamen. Here's an example. I got it. Okay, there's the stamen of the male flower. This male flower is basically done, but and I have no females to pollinate with it, so I'm okay with kind of wasting it today. But essentially, this is the male squash flower, and what can happen is it can rain a ton, and that rain can wash away the pollen, and you can think that you have enough pollen on there to pollinate your female flowers, but you actually don't. Or you could go ahead and hand pollinate, and then it can rain that day, or you can do your watering and you can actually be washing away the pollen in the female flower that you already hand pollinated. And so that will lead to incomplete pollination of your female flowers, which will decrease your yields, and it'll contribute to those malformed, sort of like big at one end and small at one end types of zucchini plants that you'll see. And another thing that can be happening, in addition to the incomplete pollination, is calcium deficiency. And that's another thing that I don't see a lot of people talking about, is that your zucchini and your squash plants can become calcium deficient if it doesn't have sufficient amounts of those minerals in the soil. So what I do to combat that sort of problem is I add lime to my soil, or I'll add azomite, which is a rock dust that actually contains calcium and helps to enrich the soil. So that is my experience with container planting of zucchini plants and some of the realistic problems that I run across, and I would think would be quite common to those who are trying to successfully garden these types of plants. So I wanted to share that with you today, and I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you will have successful squash and zucchini yields in your garden this year. So feel free to post comments below and like and subscribe if you want more tips on urban patio gardening. Thank you and have a great day.